Yes, Dr. Chris Lamont, and how you doing? Uh, I've got Wellness Code as a webinar that I'm doing right now, and we have chats on that Wellness Code, which are open to all the students in it, which I've been recording for public just to kind of give a forum for different people to ask questions that I get emails. I've been teaching for years, so I don't know how they find me, but they find me and they ask me questions, and that's all sweet. I like being of service. Uh, every now and then I get questions, and probably over the next few months, as more and more questions come in, the Wellness Code is wrapping up. It's been going on for about a year. Uh, what happens traditionally in a webinar is some people keep pace with the webinar. That's probably maybe 20 or 30% of them. Some drag a little bit behind, and some just completely abandon it. So I go out and I pursue those that are behind and encourage them, and I go out and pursue those who abandon it and try to encourage them. And so usually over the next year or more and more data comes in, more and more interactions come in. The chats I put out there public because then I get more and more questions from people in the general public, and they of course can then join into the whole scope of the program. The webinars are recorded. I can just at any time I can put anybody into the sequence, and they can paste to it however they want to, and ask me questions. And that's the whole idea. When I get really good questions, some questions have a bigger scope. A lot of the material is building range, and so if I see them as teachable moments, then I will then have a discussion group or bring it up to one of the forums. This I used as a house discussion. I had one of the students, really brilliant lady, and she sent me an email. She said, okay, I get this. I'm doing the work. And some foods I realized that I probably shouldn't eat because I don't feel good at eating them, so I'm going to quit. They're not working for me. She said, why do we then have cravings for this stuff after we cognitively decided that it's not good for us? We've maybe even taken our weight, our blood pressure. We've maybe even analyzed our sugar. We've done whatever we could do, and we've come to the conclusion it's not good for us. And why do we get cravings? Well, I have the short and a long answer, but I think a big opportunity there is not only to say, well, here's the answer that I've discovered, is all to say, here's a way to arrive at that answer, perhaps for yourself, or maybe even a better answer for yourself. So I put together a group, and we got a half a dozen people into my living room that have been doing this process for a while. They're all good contributors. I have a tendency to overtalk everything, as you've noticed. So I sit there, and for 2.5 hours, I'm talking, but they are asking questions. They're interactive. They don't mind cutting me off. They realize that don't hurt my feelings. They have something to say. I'm just delighted to hear them speak because I then learn tremendously too. And we played with that process. So I'm just going to do a highlight on that. And I will probably have more of these that will come up similar. There's just going to be questions and answers from Wellness Code is what I'm going to call them. Okay, so you heard the question. I'm going to give you the short answer up front. I didn't do that for them. And then we'll wander over for maybe 10 minutes looking at how I resolved it to give an example of range, and so that you wind up getting two answers out of this if you're patient enough to sit with it. The short answer is this. Your intuition is based on familiar. So if, for example, you have decided that coffee upsets your stomach, keeps you awake at night, caffeine doesn't work for you, you want to quit. I drink a lot of coffee, but there's a lot of people that should not drink it at all. It puts them on edge. It's all personal. So therefore, you come up to this piece of wisdom that says, I'm going to quit drinking coffee. Okay. And then you get cravings for coffee. You can justify some of it is from the, the blah, blah, blah addiction to whatever. But nonetheless, you have cravings. If you start to take a look at that in this scope, you look at your intuition, and when you're sitting there and maybe your body said, I'm thirsty for something warm. I need a little stimulus. I'm kind of running down here and I need a little boost. Okay? So when your intuition zipped through, your inductive reasoning analyzes and said, well, dude, in the past, when you needed a quick boost, you had a cup of coffee. So there's your craving. Go drink coffee. It doesn't come to you as a conversation in your head. Sometimes things like that do, but it usually comes to you in the internal component. It comes to you as a craving. So you go, oh God, boy, I could sure handle a drink of coffee right now. I should make some coffee. It's like, where'd that come from? Well, that was option number one. If you decided to quit drinking coffee, don't go, oh, I'm resisting coffee. I got to stay away. That's a no, no, oh, no. No. What you do is you sit down for 5 minutes and you say, okay, intuition, hello there. You just gave me option number one on my list from familiar. When I need a boost, I drink coffee, but I quit drinking coffee. What's number two on the list? What's number three? What's number four? What's number five? Give me 5 more options. Just give me 5 more. Once again, it's probably not going to talk in your head. It may, and that would be sweet. It'd be great if it just sent you an email or your mother called you. That happens sometimes too, I hear. Not my personal experience. But nonetheless, it usually will come to you as a thought, inspired thought over the next 10 minutes. You'll go, I'm not drinking coffee. All right, so forget it. And then all of a sudden you start to do something, and then maybe all of a sudden a Snickers commercial will come into your head and you think, oh yeah, sugar would work, but I don't want to do sugar. All right. So then all of a sudden a Chiquita banana commercial might come to your head and you go, I could eat a banana, but no, I don't want to eat a banana. Oh, okay. So, and then pretty soon maybe herbal hot tea comes up and you go, oh, wow. Yeah, I could do an herbal hot tea. That would be close, and I might do it. Yeah, I might try that. But you see, you're just digging into more options. The thing is trying to save you time. Law of conservation, first law of thermodynamics. It's trying to conserve energy. It's trying to save you time. So it automatically, without burning any calories here on analyzing, it automatically throws out the option you picked most familiar. It does a Google search for you. It picks most familiar. But that may not be what you want. And if it's not what you want, you can then ask it again. With Google, you have to reframe it. And sometimes you have to go to a different computer to get something different out of Google because they want to box you, right? Your intuition wants to box you also. So you've got to ask it. So that's the response that I would have normally given. A good answer, right? But I decided we'd play with this and build range. And we'd look at how maybe I got to that or maybe how they could get to even a better answer. So we got together. We're all sitting in there and we got to the formality. And then I started out the traditional way of starting out. It's like, you have a question about your craving. Let me share with you my personal experience. It's probably totally meaningless, but that's what people do, right? This is what your story is. Here's my story. All right. So I went through the whole routine and threw it in there. I used to get so distant from telling my story that for a long time I didn't tell my story. And then I find people thought it was a missing step. I wasn't doing it. So I got back into telling more of my story, right? Whatever. Not sure there's any value in that, but I guess it's a bonding piece, right? So anyway, I told my story. They got their story. I told my story. Then we're done with that. Then we start to talk about statistics. What do we know in the world, right? All of a sudden, we find that kids eating dirt and they need minerals, and pregnant women are eating something and it's beneficial to life. I did research all that out before this talk. There is maybe 2 or 3% of that stuff that's documented. It's actually correct. But then somewhere around 16, 18% are actually people who go to poison control. So it just tells me that I think that when a kid's drinking bleach, number one, I can't believe why anybody could drink bleach or how they could even get their head around that. You open a bottle, it's like, oh my gosh. But they do, and they wind up at poison control, and it's an issue. I don't think that you're trying to offset a deficiency in chlorine in your blood. At least the research has never been able to prove that. So to be able to trust that you're really looking for something and your craving is giving you something that you really need in your body is not really good, because 4 times as often, whatever you're craving or you're willing to do at great sacrifice is not beneficial to you. So you can't rely on that. That's not reliable. So I put that out in a rather long-winded discussion, and we interacted because we all had stories. And then I decided, now we'll look at 2 more models. We'll look at a really big blow it up to the size of the universe model. I like to go there first, right? What if the universe was all about this and nothing else? That's where I like to go. And then I come down to what I have learned from my research that I apply in my counseling and my practice, just because it's more concrete in practical application, more diversity, and has more range, because I've dealt with a few hundred people and the research came from thousands of people. So has more diversity. So those are the 2 models I advocated. So the first thing we did, we looked at the universe as a whole. So if we look at the universe as a whole, snapshot, 10-minute crystalline view, don't hold me to any theatrical science here. When we talk about the cosmic speed limit, we're really, it's not so much faster. You got to look at it this way. The universe is a dot. And when light illuminates in a dot, it doesn't travel. It just illuminates. Put your eyeball right up against the glass in the light and turn the light on. That's how quickly it gets to your light. It's no travel, no speed. It's just the size of the container. Space varies, time doesn't vary. That's what's hard for us to understand. So it's instantaneously on. It just illuminates. It does not travel. When we say that light takes 8 minutes to travel from the sun to planet Earth, the 8 minutes is because light has no mass at all. It's just simply a proton. It's just simply photon. It's just simply energy. So it doesn't go slower than the cosmic speed limit or faster than the cosmic speed limit. The speed of light is just simply what it takes to illuminate a really small spot, which is the universe. It's just a dot. No time, no space, nothing relative, no change, just a dot. It's like looking at a map of the United States. I'm in Vancouver, Washington. It's a dot on the map, that's all, right? It's just a dot. So the universe is just a dot. All right. So looking at it from that context, we have some relationship to matter. We're not all energy. We have energy and matter, some formula, E equals mc squared, some formula. So when you start to look at that formulation, that means that we're stable in our relationship to our matter energy relationship. We're stable in that. We're going slower. The light's just illuminating the dot, and we're going slower. So it gives us the illusion that we're always trying to catch up to the moment now. That's what it's doing. Another way to say that is that in our human expression in this universe, on this planet, in this game that we're playing in, we really crave matter. We're in a matter energy game that is only available in our proportion of matter energy. So superstring says that maybe there's other proportions of matter energy, and they're all different universes. We would not know they exist because we only attend to our matter energy relationship. So if those universes were all out there somewhere and they had connecting tissue, cracks in the connecting tissues could be strings or leaks into other dimensions. Superstring, right? Does that make sense? We crave our formula. We crave what's familiar. We crave that no matter what. So we continue to exist because we don't want to become 100% energy. We just simply illuminate a piece of light. We like to illuminate a little bit. I wouldn't be doing this webinar. But when I'm all done, I'm going to have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or whatever the craving brings me, right? If that makes any sense, okay? So that's the really big view. The smaller view is to go back to, some of the stuff that Keegan teaches and that he's learned in subject-object relationship. And I've loved his stuff ever since The Evolving Mind came out. It was, I read it and then maybe I chewed on it for 2-3 years trying to get all the bits and pieces to it. But I love the concept. I love the whole idea. So, and I had to read other people with similar concepts, less depth, so I could stair-step my way into his level of depth. And that's very arrogant to say that I'm in his level of depth because I'm not all that sure. But then the other piece is that I'm not sure that he's in his level of depth. So all of that is what it is, right? Just a philosophical statement, right? And I'm a bit of a philosopher. All right. So to look at his, the way of looking at that says that we're a theme, we're a subject. That's basically what it is. We're a flowing subject, we're a creation. There's a force creating us. We are created now, all right? So that force is creating us, and we're a theme or a subject. We have lots of possibilities, potential that we could do with this theme. It's like giving a topic and writing a paper. It's a theme, right? Within the context of that, we have some framework to bring this, and the matter gives us framework. The light just, remember, illuminates all the dot. The matter then gives us a framework. That illusion of distance comes from our relationship to matter. So therefore, matter is all patterns. The patterns then give us this piece of distancing, this piece of becoming, this piece of evolving, this piece of starting to look at a different pattern, a different way, a different path. We're in the process of illuminating, but we're slow because of matter. And the matter gives us patterns, and we've got to weave through the patterns to get to the point of no matter and total elimination. Really, the same thing I said earlier, but a smaller piece, right? So we're just that subject. When we look at something and we start to analyze it, we convert it to an object or to matter by our description. Yes, we put a huge limitation on it. We bring it down to matter, but then we can separate from it. And now our subject's to our subject, less one piece. And then we look again at something internal, and we analyze that, and we look at it, and we make hierarchies and structures, divide it out, and assign differences. They're all assignments, which produce limitations, which makes them all objects outside. And now we're still the subject of us, and we're not carrying that anymore. And we're now going deeper, and we're going deeper. That's the nature of subject-object relationship. So we crave that process, being able to look at that, separate I from these pieces of matter, define them as something, and that's how we created the universe. That's how we created the game, and that's what we're playing. So that's what we're doing. So we just simply put it out there and say, oh, look, that's a tree, and that tree and this tree look different. Wow, I created 2 different types of trees. That's interesting. They're different because they're a different pattern, but they're similar because they both came from the same stream of potential. Like, wow, that's interesting. Okay, so now we start to see that there's a craving for the process. There's not only a craving for being in a game, there's a craving for the process. We then have to say that essentially cravings are an essential component of human. We're always going to have cravings. We can relate to them in different sorts of ways. I am advocating as a facilitator and a teacher, learn to relate to them in different sorts of ways. It's easy to become a heroin addict, but it's not so easy to live with stress of a job, a family, a toxic environment, right? It's not so easy to have friends who are hurting. It's not so easy to be of service to people when they don't understand or comprehend. The nature of the bigger picture. But have fun with your cravings. There are an opportunity for you to look what's in that package that has a charge. The charge is not important. It's just simply an alarm going off. Look into the alarm. Play with it a little bit. you'll have fun. All right? So ask your questions. We'll have fun with them.